Hello and welcome back to the channel. Grog here today, and I'm going to bring you the very anticipated tier list, official tier list by Grog himself. Now, like a lot of you know that have seen my other videos, I don't go by vibes. No vibe check here, although I love vibing. And I'm going to be more evidence-based. So I'm going to back up a lot of my opinions. They are opinions though. So obviously there's some sort of bias in a lot of these takes. However, they're going to be backed by footage that we've gotten on the demo though. I heard that the next closed beta is going to be a changed build, so maybe some of this tier list changes when the game releases. But however, the tier list I have today is on the demos build. What am I going to rank things on? Ooh, I'm getting a call, 1 second. All right, continuing with the video. Sorry, I got a call. I'm going to be judging the classes on 5 main criteria. That's going to be single target, of course, how they do, multi-target, mobility. So there's a catch to mobility. I'll try to explain it as I'm going through the classes. Tankiness, so you know how many hits before you have to heal. And utility. Utility I'm going to break down between buffs and like crowd control. I assume both of those as utility for these classes, because not every class has buffs, but some of them make up for it with certain crowd control. Now, not all criteria are going to be the same. Some criteria are more impactful in second job, and this is a second job video, right? I'm not going to be ranking these classes for their potential on third job or fourth job. We don't know what those parts of the class are going to look like, and also they might change from now to then, right? They might see some balance changes, they might see some new skills, so we're not judging that, just second job and how each class plays out in the content we are seeing so far, which is Victoria Island. Okay, so like I said, not all criteria are going to look the same. Mobility and multi-target is very important in second job, because in second job you're not going to be doing a lot of bossing. So for example, someone that excels on a single target is not going to be as impactful as someone that can grind very efficiently and get to that late game, right? Because there's not a lot of bossing in second job. We might see more bossing in Forgotten Hollow, we don't know, but I'm just letting you know what my criteria is going to be like when I'm ranking these classes. Second, right before we get to the classes themselves, I just wanted to say that thank you so much for watching these videos. I've been getting more and more following. I've been getting a lot of DMs from my other videos, and I just wanted to say, consider liking and subscribing to this video. It helps a lot. All I wanted to say was, if you want to look at more content for MapleStory, be it from me or other creators, great creators like Dino Fries, Layman's Commentary, Joe Hawk, you know, all these other creators, you want to see more of it, consider subscribing and liking the channel, right? Interacting with MapleStory content is just going to make you get more and more. So again, you know, help yourself build your algorithm by liking and subscribing to this video. I know I'm trying to put myself out there, but I would appreciate it. Now, let's get to the meat and potatoes. Okay, Cleric. This is Forgotten Hollow, so this is the new area. We're looking at the damage. So I don't know if you noticed there, but as soon as he touched the enemy, he's doing right there 237 damage, so that's the invincible damage. They are somewhat of a low damage class, of course, but Cleric makes up for it on utility, mobility, and they do more damage than before. Let's see how they're doing. Magic Claw around 600 damage on these mobs. So Holy Arrow, 300 damage each. It's doing around 900. With crits, it can do up to like 1,000 damage per cast. So you're going to notice that this class is doing less damage than everybody else, but he is a support class. See right here, again, decent damage for it being a cleric. Those are the buffs for them. Okay, so now they got a bit of AoE, they got a little bit better damage, especially when grinding on places that are not undead. Let's look at this footage right now. So as you can see, not every hit is doing the same damage. So on these red pedal guys, they're doing like 300 to 350, sometimes even 400 and above with crits. However, for the octopuses, it's doing a little bit less damage. That could just be due to the octopus being higher level, we don't really know right now, or them being having more magic defense. But you can see about the range of damage that clerics are pulling. Important clip right here. Heal. Heal got gutted. Before we look at this again, look at that. One thing I wanted to notice about heal is its horizontal range seems about the same, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. I'll just say it's about the same. The horizontal range is looking great. However, the vertical range got a really big hit. I'll show you in another clip. Damage-wise though, it's hitting 5 targets here, about 90 damage each. 90, 90, 90, 90. And then 2 died, so now you're hitting 3 targets. It's doing 115, 16, and 18, so around 110 to 20 damage on 3 targets. So as you can see, the less targets you're hitting, it starts splitting less and less. Then those die, and then on the very last hit, just a single heal doing 200 damage on him. Not a lot of damage compared to other classes, but I do think heal is, pretty decent damage-wise. It does not put up as much damage as Holy Arrow. I think the best way to use heal now is use them for dragging. So I just call dragging when you aggro a lot of mobs and then clump them all together so you can mob them down. So you can teleport, heal, teleport, heal, teleport, heal on somewhere like the subway, Kerning subway, and you can drag all of them together. That's where the word dragging comes from, and then you can mob them all down. I think heal, decent, but it got really nerfed on both damage, give me a sec, and verticality. So as you can see here, look at that, hit it, and this heal right here, it doesn't hit that mushroom above him. Heals again, doesn't hit it. You can see the nerf there on verticality. I think it still feels well though, but here it looks really good because he's killing things that are 30 levels below him. If you're killing things that are your same level, it's not going to look the same way. Here, we're going to look, let me pull up this clip. So look at the range here. This is what I was talking about. This heal should be able to hit this wraith right next to him. Heals and nothing, right? That's kind of weird. Also, probably should have hit the wraith above him. If you jump and heal, it should have hit, I think, all 3 of these. And he's very inconsistently hitting them. Seems like the range, very nerfed. Right here, okay, this is a great one. So, he stands here. If you played Cleric before, you know that if you heal right here, you're hitting this wraith. Doesn't hit them. Very awkward. Heal, heal, heal. Okay, this is normal. And right here, this one in the lower platform comes into range. Heals, doesn't hit him either. Right, and heals, doesn't hit them. So this map, which is pretty iconic for Cleric healing and Cleric training in Victoria Island, because remember, they get a lot of good training areas once Ludibrium comes out and once other areas come out. But for the sake of Victoria Island, Wraiths is the go-to for Clerics. A lot of the Lupin maps aren't out, so I won't say that the zombie Lupins are super good. There might be some zombie Lupin maps that are out. I know Monkey Forest won't be out in the launch, or it doesn't seem to be out in the demo, and it makes sense because Monkey Forest came out not on original release. It actually came a little bit after, so it makes sense that it's not out in the game. But yeah. Okay, so let's look at Holy Arrow. So we saw that in Forgotten Hollow, it was doing around 200 to 300 damage on those higher magic resist, and around 350 to sometimes 400 on the lower magic resist enemies. And look at these rates, taking almost 500 damage, 450 to 500 damage consistently without critting. So there you can see the damage that Holy Arrow does when they're killing wholly vulnerable enemies. This was iconic back then, and I think it's still going to stay as the Cleric training map, but it won't be as easy to grab them all and and wrangle them with heal because of the reduced verticality. But I mean, clerics don't have a lot of trouble managing this map because of their teleport, right? All mages have teleport, so their mobility is really good. I'm gonna place them. I think they're still very good. I place them at B. The nerfs to heal, especially the range, because I'm okay with them nerfing the damage as long as you can make up for it for Holy Arrow, which they do. I think they do. I think Holy Arrow is great. And you training an undead just means Holy Arrow is going to do extra damage on those. However, now their dragging has been severely nerfed. So now I don't think you're going to be doing a lot of heal dragging. I think it's going to be more Holy Arrow spam with teleport. Holy Arrow, teleport spam. Yeah. Next up, we have Fire Poison. So let's pull up the clip. Okay, so first, let's test the damage over time. So if you've kept up with the changes, they put damage over time on their Fire Arrow. Not only that, they also made the Poison Breath ability, or the little bubble, they made it AoE. So now, not only do you hit one thing, you hit multiple things AoE, and also the damage is scaled off your magic attack instead of scaling off the mob's max HP. So let's look at it. Right there, you can see it running. 25 on the monkey, 20 and 20 something. I think both ticks were doing 20 on the golem. So you can see that the ticks, the damage over time, is now affected by magic defense, where before it wasn't. Before it was just a flat amount. So I wanted to look at the Fire Arrow damage. Okay, so here. Already doing slightly bit more damage than the Holy Arrow. Makes sense. Holy Arrow does 45 base damage per arrow, while this one does 50 base damage per arrow. So around 10% more. And you can see it's doing about 10% more. Look at that, almost 400s. Easily. And that's without the damage over time. So with the damage over time, it really pulls it above a Holy Arrow. But the damage over time doesn't seem very, very powerful. All in all, I think Fire Poison Mage is very powerful, very good. They got really good buffs, and the way Fire Arrow works on it, if there's 3 targets, it hits all 3. If there's 2 targets, it kind of prioritizes one or another. You can look at my deep dive video if you want more information on how the Fire Arrow works. However, I do think they're really good. They're very powerful, especially when you're attacking vulnerable enemies. And what really takes all mages to the very, very tippy top of their performance is their mobility. They are by far the most mobile characters in the second job, and pretty much the entire game, besides Hermits. But Teleport is an incredibly powerful spell. Let's look at another clip. So I wanted to show you how much damage. So they were doing around 350 to almost 400 per arrow. So around 1200 damage per cast. And that's excluding the damage over time. Now, here I'm going to show you the ligators or however you want to call them. They're fire vulnerable. Look at the damage difference. Almost 600 damage per cast. That's 1800 damage. So like I said, I mean, you'll see that other classes do slightly more damage more consistently. However, when you're dealing with vulnerable enemies, Fire Poison does a ton of damage. And with their mobility, you know, they can cross through the map very easily, very quickly. So look at the Poison Breath. Poison Breath is pretty underwhelming, not gonna lie. Look at fire here. There you go. And if it was me playing this, right, I would have killed that, teleport to the right, just like he did there. Killed them, teleport top, kill those, teleport to the left, kill those over there. Like, I would have been just schmoving. I know this guy's just trying to have fun on the demo. He's just trying to test things more than being like hyper efficient. But if you are trying to play for hyper efficiency, Fire Poison is very strong, very strong. All right, so Fire Poison, where would I put them? I think right now, A tier. Very strong. Buffs came in clutch, and they're very low utility. They don't really have crowd control, and they don't really have like party buffs other than meditation. I don't think meditation's a good party buff. It's pretty useless. You can look at that in my deep dive video, but let's disregard that. I still think Fire Poison, because of their very, very, very high mobility, AoE potential, and just really good damage overall, put them in A tier. Next, let's look at Ice Lightning. All right. Very curiously, I just wanted to show you this clip before we go deep diving into Ice Lightning. I think they nerfed their vertical as well as Cleric's heal. Look at this. So that right there was Lightning Bolt and the Lightning Bolt animation. And it didn't hit the mushrooms right below him. Very curious. I mean, Cold Beam does good damage, but look at that as well. He goes up here, casts Cold Beam, doesn't hit anything right below him. It seems like at least the downward verticality nerfed. I have to see. Cold Beam doing decent damage, over 1,000 damage on some cast. However, these are lower level mobs, so I would say around 900 damage in higher level mobs probably. Now this is their bread and butter, it's Lightning Bolt. Now let's see him cast it on higher level mobs. Here we can see Cold Beam and Lightning Bolt. This will be a little bit of a longer clip. You saw how Cold Beam was doing around 800 to 1,000 damage. On this Firebore, 1,500 damage. That is because he is cold vulnerable or ice vulnerable, and he's also lower level than the Drake, so he's just taking more damage. Lower magic defense as well. But he took a lot of damage there. Look at that, 1,500. Around 800 to 900 damage on Drakes. But they're bread and butter. They're mobbing, right? One thing I wanted to note. You'll see here that he's trying to aggro them and drag them together to maximize his Lightning Bolt. He's not able to though, because as you can see, he moves forward, teleports forward twice, and now he's realizing, oh, that first one, this one over here on the left, is stunned. So he won't follow. So he actually double backs. Goes back and he's like, oh shit, you know, I wanted to drag them, maybe AoE them down. He just turns around and starts cold beaming. That's one of the things I didn't like about the new stun on Lightning Bolt. It has its uses. It improves his utility, but slightly nerfs his multi-target, you know? It really affects their dragging ability. However, in this scenario, where you have very dense platform, which is what Ice Lightnings thrive on, is they have the biggest AoE. Most AoEs got nerfed to 4, however, Slash Blast from Warriors and Lightning Bolt from Ice Lightnings stayed at 6. So they're able to really AoE platforms down that are very, very dense. Look at that. 400 to 500 damage on each one, times 6, that's close to 3,000 damage, right? Anywhere between 2,500 to 3,000 damage. So you can see their output per cast, very strong on the right circumstances. And you kind of create these circumstances as you're training with a combination of teleport and dragging. You'll see that the classes that have a lot of AoE like dragging. So for example, warriors like dragging, they'll hit everything, take everything to the corner, and then after that, they'll AoE it all down with Slash Blast. However, mages do this job a lot easier with teleport, right? You can navigate the map. Oops, he fell. But he gets up. I want to show you real quick. Look at that. This is where they excel. 1,200, 1,600, 2,000 damage, 3,000 damage per cast, if you're averaging 3 or more targets. So that's where they excel. Individually, it was doing around 400 damage per cast of Lightning Bolt. Again, not a lot of damage individually, but AoE, oh my goodness. One more clip. So you can see this platform is really high. And in this one, instead of standing still and just spamming Lightning Bolt, he does what I tell him, which is what I tell you, which is dragging, right? He drags all those, he hits the ones on the right, hits the ones on the left, goes into the middle, and spams Lightning Bolt. This is where Ice Lightning shines, right? Finishes off the last ones with Cold Beam. Classic Ice Lightning play. Overall, I think they're pretty powerful. I wouldn't say they're as powerful as Fire Poison, and here's why. They have a lot of potential when it comes to very dense, populated maps. That isn't always the case, though. You know, you can't just say, oh, well, my class is good, but only when, you know, every time you put more and more circumstances that they are good and they aren't. So, for example, exceptions. Every time you put an exception, is that class really good, though? That being said, they are very powerful. Sadly, there aren't a lot of lightning weak monsters in the initial Victoria Island release, so they get deducted a few points because of that. But however, once Florina Beach releases and once more regions release, who knows, maybe some monsters in Forgotten Hollow are lightning weak or even ice weak. Once more that content releases and Ice Lightning sees more enemies vulnerable to lightning, well, they'll be more and more powerful. However, right now, I'll stick them at A, very powerful class, and their mobility takes them up a notch. Alright, next class. Alright, Assassins. Whew. I know this one's going to be a good one. It's a very anticipated one. Let's look at the damage from Lucky 7 and Drain. Let's start there. I know Stone Golems are very tanky, so don't just go off the damage they're doing here compared to other classes, but around 400 per Lucky 7 star, 800 in average. Look at that. Almost 500 on each, and that's 1,000 damage, 800 damage. And I think he drains here for 16 on a crit and 1,000 on a crit. You'll notice that when he's using Drain, it's very consistent on its damage. 1,500 damage. Normal hit on a blue mushroom. Compare this to the mages. You know, the mages did, I think Fire Poison we saw hit a blue mushroom, and he did around 400 times 3. That's 1,200 damage. Drain here did 1,500 damage. Much more. See the damage on 2,400 damage crit on a blue mushroom. That's ridiculous. I want to see Drain again on the Stone Golem. I don't know if he does it. So 500 times 2, it's around 1,000 damage. 400 times 2, close to 800. Drain, 1,500. 1,000 again. So as we're seeing, Drain is doing consistently on Stone Golems 1,000 damage. 1,500 on the blue mushrooms. So you have two different mobs with different defense stats. You can see how Drain is consistently doing more damage than Lucky 7. 800 on the Stone Golems compared to 1,000 from Drain. Also, things to note. Drain heals you, does more damage, and also uses only 1 star instead of 2 stars from Lucky 7. So if you can only grind for 15 to 20 minutes at a time with Lucky 7, you can grind twice as long with Drain. You can go for 30, 40 minutes before having to go back and recharge your stars. I do think Assassins, damage output wise and mobility wise, you know, they have haste. They can jump and attack. A lot of classes can't jump and attack. But this has to be fixed. And it is the verticality in the attacks right there. Did you see how this class, they didn't remove the claw punching because I feel like they wanted them to be, you know, jump attackers. I talk about this on my deep dive video for Assassins and Thieves themselves. And I think that the jump attacking playstyle is cool, but this can't be happening. You know, if you want them to be jump attackers, you can't have the verticality from the stars be so little, you know, vertically, that when you jump, you out jump your target, so you're missing your stars. That's crazy. I have a better example of that. So right here, you see him, very dense platform right here. He claw punches. So he's like, oh shit, you know, I want to grind here. No worries, I'm just going to jump and attack. Same thing Assassins do all the time. Look at his right side. He has 1, 2, 3 drakes right there on the corner. There's 2 boars there. There might be more. Look at this. Jumps, misses. Jumps, misses. He can finally attack because he stayed on the ground and the Drake wasn't in melee range. So, he could attack without claw punching. But that can't be happening. That can't be happening. If you're going to have a class that you want them to jump attack because, they can't attack in melee, the claw punch and all, you can't nerf their verticality so much so that they can't jump and attack and hit the damn enemy. Copper Drakes are actually one of the taller enemies. They have a pretty tall hitbox. And if you've played MapleStory, you know that hitboxes really matter in this game. It's not like every single enemy has the same hitbox. No, Copper Drakes are tall. And there's no reason why he jumps, attacks here, doesn't hit anything. Jump attacks, doesn't hit anything. That can't be happening. I'm sorry. As much as I say the good things about Assassin, I say the bad. And in most of my videos, I've been telling people, don't doom about Assassins. They're still good. Trust me. Most likely you'll have to use Drain over Lucky 7 if you want to maximize your damage healing and star usage. I do think Drain is better. I'm sorry. Post and comment all the hate that you want. Drain, I think, is objectively better. However, the problem here isn't Lucky 7 or Drain. It's this. If you're going to have them jump attacking, you have to make their stars. Look at that. He drained right there and he didn't hit anything. There, it hit. It's really annoying if this is how the game is. And I do think this is just a bug from the demo, the build, but they have to change that. So going into ranking the Assassin, I do think they are incredibly powerful. Ice Lightnings needed 3, 4, 5 targets to be hitting over 1,200, 1,600, 2,000 damage, while Assassins were consistently doing an easy 13, 14, 1,500 damage. They had the highest crit. So when they crit with a Drain, I saw 24, 2,600? It was extremely powerful, right? I think Assassins are in a really good spot, even though they don't have AoE. You have to deduct some points from AoE standpoint. However, single target, extremely powerful. Mobility, very powerful when haste comes into play, when you think about them being able to attack and jump. Because when you jump attack, you're traversing more area. So that also plays into their mobility. All in all, right under Ice Lightning. They have the potential to do more damage than Ice Lightnings, and pretty consistently actually. However, Ice Lightning just takes the cake by very slightly because they have teleport. Teleport is incredibly powerful in second job. It is powerful in the entire game. Yeah. Next up, Bandits. Let's look at the clip for Bandit. Let's pause and look at the damage. On Golems, 6 hits, around 240, 250 damage per hit. If you take out the math, that's 1,500 damage. Always. No needing to jump. No needing to, claw punch. No need for a crit. That's just automatic 1,500 damage on a Golem. Drain, which I think is the hardest hitting ability on Assassins, once everything is maxed, was doing 1,000 damage on Golems. Maybe a little bit more than 1,000. Bandit, 1,500 on a Golem. Consistently. Look at that. 350s, 360s, 400 crit on a fairy. That's insane. That's 2,000 damage on the fairy. Look at that. 1,500 on a Golem. 1,500 on a Golem. If those misses, so I'm not gonna, I do think there's accuracy problems in the demo, not Bandit itself. But in the demo, there was some weird misses on level 5 enemies at level 50. I think that's weird. However, let's not account the misses. That would have done close to 2,000 damage on that blue mushroom. I think more than 2,000. Look at that. No misses, 2,000 damage on a mushroom. That's insane. They're very, very powerful. I think the person commenting on this video is saying how, you know, Savage Blow's animation is pretty long, so you feel like you're stuck to the ground. It's always been like that, right? In OG, Savage Blow just has a lot of animations. I think that is part of what makes the class very cool, you know, all the letters and all the animation looking, and then all the lines once you hit the enemy. However, it does lock you in place. You have to really master the jump attacking, because that way you kind of shave off half of the animation lock midair, right? So it just comes to practicing the class. They're also very low range. So look at that right there. He jumps, tries to hit, doesn't. Lowest range class in the game. Lower range than warriors. However, look at that damage. You know, they make up for the loss in range with incredible damage, incredible consistency. A damage steroid there, he activated steel. He didn't have steel before. And he's doing, look at that, now he's doing even more damage on these golems. Crazy class. Let's look at more damage on Sleepywood. Again, you know, you look at these dense maps with more spawn than the usual, right? And you see he's having to attack one by one. That's the thing about bandits. They don't have any AoE until much later, you know, third and fourth job. And the AoE abilities they get isn't the most powerful. Unless they change it. I don't want to comment too much on further jobs because that can change. But right now, they're extremely powerful in single target. Look at that. That was almost 500 times 6. 3,000 damage on a single mob. That's insane. That's insane. So here's the thing. I don't think I have to go too much more into detail with this. I do think bandits are extremely powerful. I'll pull up one more video because I think in this video he didn't have attack potions before. Now he has attack potion and steel. But look at that damage on golems. Now with the attack potion and the steel, he's doing almost 300 plus damage per hit times 6. That's above 800 damage. He's doing close to 1,900 to 2,000 on a golem. I think the damage bandits are outputting is totally insane. And even if they pretty much put all their attribute points into single target and some into mobility, right? Their use of evasion helps in knock and knock back, haste, clear, speed, and jump steroid. Overall, bandits, very good single target. 0 multi-target. Not the tankiest class, however, in third job they get Meso Guard. But let's just say right now, no Meso Guard. How tanky are they? They're a little bit tankier than other classes. Remember, they have a shield, and also shield now has a passive like guard mechanic, so even if it doesn't trigger very often, it'll save you potions here and there. All in all, I deadass think that every single class right now is balanced enough to be an A or B tier. Bandits are S. They are the only class right now that I'm ranking as S. You can look at the rest of the video if you want, but Bandit just seems to take the cake. Even with no multi-target, they kind of don't need multi-target because they're so incredibly powerful in single target that they just one-shot everything. They one-shot everything. So by the time some classes, you know, they have to drag enemies and, you know, they take time on teleporting through the... No, you know, bandits just look at something and it's dead. It does so much damage. Only downside is that they're melee, they don't have range. But they kind of don't care about that. They do so much damage. It's incredible. It's pretty ridiculous if you ask me. Very powerful. Much needed buff for Bandit. Alright, next class. Hunter. So, Hunter didn't change too much in number, but it changed in the base of how Hunter works. And this goes to both archers, and here's why. I think the main problem with hunters and archers back then was their scaling, right? Their damage, base damage of how bows and crossbows worked, and their ammunition. So for example, claws had very low weapon attack, but then they scaled off weapon attack like crazy. So when you got buffs, so when you got a better star, or you got weapon attack gloves, or you got weapon attack in every other equipment, they saw an incredible increase in damage. However, arrows and bowmen and crossbowmen didn't see a lot of damage in their weapon attack, same as their ammunition. Their ammunition, they went up in damage, and it barely did any damage. You know, from the initial star assassins have, it goes from 15 attack to 27 from Ilby. I'm going to stop at Ilby because I know there's more stars, but let's use that as an example. And arrows went from 0 attack to 4. So they got a 4 attack buff maximum for a class that barely scales off of weapon attack. So that 4 attack wasn't even a big deal, right? Like you couldn't even recharge your arrows. So you had to go all the way to another continent to get those arrows, or you had to get them in FM, or you had to, what people did was, since you couldn't recharge them, you would leave a few stacks of arrows on an alt character or on your bank, and whenever you had to recharge, you just get it from your alt to your bank. I think that's ridiculous. I think you should add recharging to arrows. Not only that, it was the attack it provided. So arrows were bad. They provided very low damage, while Ilby gave a ton of damage, and not only that, claws themselves just scaled off weapon attack a lot more. So that 12 attack extra from Ilby was actually, 300 extra range, when the 4 extra attack from an archer was like 50 extra range or less. It was really bad. Anyways, sorry about the arrow rant. Let's talk hunter. So here's a big thing I would like to point out right away, comparing hunter and crossbowman, because we're going to get to crossbow later. Arrow bomb has a limitation, which is if you attack right in front of you, it hits the first enemy, and after it hits the first enemy, it creates that explosion around him, right? In this scenario, you can see that the explosion is hitting this first target. It's hitting the second target with the explosion. It's not hitting this Lupin way back here. Why? Because that extra range, the hitbox of the bomb, is where the bomb initially triggers. So he has to cast twice there. I think I have a better clip. Okay, so pretty good clip here for arrow bomb, and my explanation on why it's good. Archers right now are doing really good damage. However, stay with me. Look at arrow bomb's behavior when it selects enemies to hit, right? In this platform. This platform's pretty dense. I see a ton of enemies. Let's see it. Arrow bomb hits the golem, hits the Kursai. Would have been nice if it hit any of these other targets. That's not how arrow bomb works. So he power knockbacks to get them all together. And after they're together, arrow bomb really shines, right? So arrow bomb has that limitation where all the enemies really need to be stacked up to do its maximum damage. And that's not a really big issue when you already have power knockback. So power knockback now, you don't really need it if before you used it just to knock back things away from you because you couldn't attack from melee. Now you can attack from melee, but you don't use power knockback to, they're in melee, so I can't attack. You use it for 2 things. 1, you use it now to save potions, save HP potions. And 2, you use it to stack them together, because if they're stacked together, arrow bomb really shines. So right here, you see, he's using arrow bomb. He kills a little clump right in front of him, but it would have been nice if it hit this dark golem. Same here. I mean, it hits the ones in the front. It doesn't really hit the ones in the back. I haven't talked about archer damage. So damage-wise, they're doing really good. A class that is at range doing over 1,000 damage on double shot. Look at that. 2 golems. Each hit was 550 and almost 600. That is a little bit over 1100. So more than some mages. Remember, mages were averaging around 900 to 1,100. So around the same, maybe even more. And then when you arrow bomb, it does even more if you're hitting 3 or more targets. Not only that, they have higher crit rate. So, you know, higher chance to get that damage multiplier. But Archer has a lot of things going for it, right? Now it can attack in melee. It has good crowd control with arrow bomb. All in all, damage-wise, it looks like the damage went up. However, that's due not to changes in skills. It's due to changes in their base behavior of weapon attack formulas and all that on bows, presumably, and maybe bullets. I don't know, like the munition, the arrows. Where does Archer fit in for me? Right under Assassins. I do like that they're a ranged class and it helps them with a lot of farming. They have great crowd control. The damage that are lacking from Assassins, they make up for utility, right? They have that slow from Amazon's Judgment. They have that stun from Arrow Bomb. Very good class. I think they're much more powerful than they used to be before, and I hope they keep growing as a class because I think more people should play Bowman. Not because I want sharp eyes. All right, I might be guilty there. But yeah, Archers just had a lot of things not going for them. I mean, Monkey Forest was notoriously a hunter map because it was the only map they could train safely where they could arrow bomb and not get meleeed or not get magic attacked or whatever. They need more love than just a Monkey Forest map, right? They needed their entire kit to be just slightly more powerful, and I think that's what they got. They got no bow whacking, amazing, and they got a little bit more damage, which I think they needed. Next up, Crossbowman. Let's pull up the clip list. This one's going to be a little bit short. I think Crossbowmen are very straightforward, kind of like Hunters. We just went over that. But here's the difference between Crossbowman and Hunter. So see how he looks at enemies, he shoots, he doesn't care. Shoots right here, hits the ones right in his face, hits the Dark Golem all the way to the corner, turns around, shoots, hits all of the 4 enemies right in front of him, and he says, you know what, let's go to the corner. I don't know why he tries to power knockback. Oh, he talks in the video. He's trying to feel out how power knockback feels and plays out. But look at this. He just stands still and he's like, why do I need to power knockback? You know, this isn't like Arrow Bomb. They don't have to be clumped up to work. This is just a straight line. Everything in front of me is dying no matter what. And look at the damage he's outputting. Look at that. Imagine that didn't miss. 1200, 700, a miss, and a 4th hit that I didn't see, 300 on the tanky golem. If that hit, that missed, wouldn't have missed, that would have been close to 3,000 damage. Right there. 944, 700 right behind it, 500, and 400. Quick maths. $2,500 damage. Insane on 4 targets. The thing about Ice Lightning is they need a stack of 5 to 6 enemies to be doing this much damage. Crossbowmen, they see 3 targets in front of them, 2, 3 targets, 4, doesn't really matter. They're doing so much damage. Especially sometimes you'll see he does a little bit more damage because of the crossbow proc. Crossbow proc, what it is it's a mastery. It has a chance to ignore the enemy's defense. And it comes into play really well with these golems because golems innately have a lot of weapon defense. Look at that, consistently just doing thousands of damage, right? 900, 700. So here we have 1,700 plus another 1,000, 2,700 damage on 4 targets. That is insane. Incredibly powerful. They don't need to power knockback because they just shoot forward, right? Look at this. I think this is the best clip right here. He just climbs up the rope. He doesn't care, doesn't need to power knock back. He just climbs up the rope. Iron arrow, everything's dead. Incredibly powerful. I think they're putting out a lot of damage and a lot of consistent damage. Here's why compared to hunters. They don't need maps like Monkey Forest where things need to be together like platform. That's a very niche modeled map, and a lot of maps don't have that. A lot of maps just have platforms with enemies on them, and that's all the Crossbowman needs. It needs a platform and hopefully dense amount of enemies because they have really good AoE. He only cares about shooting forward, hitting everything, doesn't need to power knockback, and he can if he wants to save potions. But at the end of the day, the damage is so insane that you probably kill everything on 2-3 casts before you even need to tank more than one hit. Look at that. It's insane. It's crazy how powerful this class is. And the only thing I think it's lacking is mobility. I mean, archers are also, like warriors, notorious for having very low mobility throughout the entire game. And a lot of bows had speed on them, bows and crossbows. To date, I haven't seen bows and crossbows with speed on them, so maybe they got removed to make up for other stats, just make them less mobile, which plays into them being even more immobile. They can't attack while jumping. However, they make up a lot of their strength with just straight up piercing through the entire enemy lines. One example, like one comparable class this reminds me of is right as Big Bang came out, right? Do you remember Mechanic? The guy that is standing on the mech. In 4th job, Mechanic gets its tank form, and the tank throws like a big laser in front of it. And basically the laser just hits everything in a line, doing a ton of damage. That's what this reminds me of. Not as much damage, of course, we're speaking Big Bang compared to Classic, but very similar attack pattern. He doesn't care about enemies, how they are, if they're separated or if they're not. As long as they're right in front of him, he's just shooting and mowing down everything. I don't want to keep going on, rambling on and on about Crossbowman, but you can tell that Crossbowman has checked a very, very powerful checklist right here for me. And I'm really debating if putting him above Fire Poison or below. The one changing factor here is I do think Crossbowmen do more damage on average than Fire Poison, but Fire Poison, having teleport and being able to just navigate the map so efficiently, that maybe Fire Poison edges it just by a little bit. I do think. I'm sorry, Crossbowmen, you're very powerful, and I do hope a lot of people play this class. And I hope that 3rd and 4th job is as fun and as powerful as 2nd job. However, I do think Fire Poison slightly ahead because of that mobility. Teleport and mobility in 2nd job is very, very important. And if you want to mob enemies consistently, especially in OG, you need to traverse the map to get platforms that are very dense. OG is not like private servers where every platform, all the mobs spawn at the same rate always, all the time. OG is different, right? If you kill mobs in one platform, they stop spawning and they spawn in other platforms. So basically, you're forced to move around the map and kill everything unless you're party grinding. And then you kill the things in your platform, and then Joe gets the spawn, and then Joe kills the ones on his platform, and now you're getting the spawn. And so there's a back and forth where you and your party, Joe and Bill and Bob and Nancy, all of them are killing things in their own platforms, and now your platform is being refilled again and again and again. If that's the case, Crossbowman takes the cake because you don't need a lot of mobility. All you need is they spawn, point and shoot, while Fire Poison gets the benefit of, if you're training alone or if you're training in a big map or whatever the case is, you can look for those dense platforms. So you kill a platform, now there's only like one spawn. However, that other platform has 6 or 7 or 8. So you can teleport over there, looking at that platform. It's looking dense, it's looking juicy. You kill the whole thing, then you teleport back. So, all in all, Crossbowman, very powerful. Next up, the warriors. I left the warriors the best for last, but probably not the best. I think this is hero, Dark Knight, and Page. So let's look at hero. Let's go for the hero videos. All right. Immediately, I'm throwing you into where hero shines. Slash Blast. Power Strike is strong itself, don't get me wrong. However, look at this. 6 targets, 600 to 700 damage pretty consistently. Hero looks really good, right? That being said, he does have attack, potion, and rage here. However, the damage is there, right? 1500, 1400 on crits. Another platform here, very dense. Look at that, 750. So let's do the math. 750 times 6, if you get 6 enemies. Obviously, that's not going to happen very often. But if you do get 6 enemies, that's 4,500 damage. 4,500 damage is a lot. Even if you get 5 enemies, 3,750, very good. 4 enemies, 3,000, very good. However, that doesn't happen very often. Also, this guy has attack potion and rage. Now we're looking at one-handed. We're looking at around 400 to 500 damage. This is one-handed. He doesn't have the shield equipped right now because he forgot to equip it in this clip. But remember, you're trading damage for defensive stats. On top of that, you also get the guard mechanic if you have a shield equipped. Very strong here, 400, 500, and then on power strikes he's doing 800 to 900, 1,000 on that crit, 850, 900. So somewhat strong, I'll give him that. He switches now to two-handed sword, 1,200. Goes for slash blast for 600. So you can see how from one-handed to two-handed he went, and here you don't see attack potion equipped. He only has rage. So he went up from 400 one-handed attacks to 600 damage two-handed attacks. So again, that makes sense, right? But two-handed, obviously attacking a little bit stronger, slower, but stronger. Warriors are very easy to judge. They're pretty one-dimensional. They do 2 things and they do them well, and that's all they do. They do pretty strong single target with power strike, pretty strong AoE with slash blast, and that's pretty much it. They don't have good mobility. The best way to really grind with them is either by dragging, or if you're lucky, you'll land on top of a platform that has a lot of enemies. Because they want to drag, because they lack a lot of mobility, so they can't just be like Crossbowman, go to a platform, shoot it from a corner, or shoot it from the middle, or shoot it from wherever. No, they have to walk up to things. So you could say warriors have less mobility than archers. They have the same movement speed. However, can you say that mobility is just saving time with movement? So yeah, archers are the same speed as a warrior. However, if they have to move less, it's pretty much made up mobility. It's like, how do you make money? How do you get more money? You either make more money or you spend less. If you spend less, you technically make more. So that's basically what archers are, right? They can either make themselves quicker or make themselves walk less. Warriors, on the other hand, they don't have that benefit. They have to walk up to enemies. You can see they have power itself, but just the slog of having to walk back and forth and having to drag enemies if you want to AoE them efficiently, it does put them a little lower than what I would want them to be. But most people that have played MapleStory knows warrior really fleshes out and gets a lot of their identity and skills and differences in third job and onwards, right? Right now, in second job, almost all warriors are basically the same. So with that all being said, put in hero right here. B tier, right under clerics. Sure, cleric does less damage. However, the mobility mages has, and all the utility they have puts them up there in the top B tier. Now let's go to Dark Knight. So one thing you'll notice about warriors is they're all very similar in attack pattern and behavior. However, spearmen themselves have a slash and stab dynamic that other warriors don't have, or most other warriors don't have. Why? Heroes and pages can use swords. Swords have normalized slash and stab. So if they slash or if they stab, they do the same amount of damage. However, spearmen, if you slash with a polearm, it does more damage. If you stab, it does less. The opposite is also true for spears. Spears do more damage with a stab, does less damage with a slash. Look at here. He does around 400 damage on the golems, and he just stabbed with a polearm. He's going to do more damage now with a slash. He slashes and does 780, 730, so almost 800 damage. And you can tell this is actually even more damage than the hero we saw with the two-handed sword. But why is that? It's because spearmen have higher damage if you're attacking with the swing animation that they favor. However, if it's the one it doesn't favor them, well, do a lot less damage. Look at that, a power strike for 1700. I think the highest power strike we saw, two-handed, on a golem was around 1400. So the spearman doing 300 to 400 more damage on a power strike. That's without rage. Spearman has its pros, it has its cons, it has its scenarios where it's doing more damage, it's doing less damage, whatever. I think heroes, the pro is that it has more predictability in their damage. Spearmen, they do have a little bit more range. So they have cons, but they also have pros. Few pros. They have a tiny bit more range. They have more attack power on their weapons. The scaling of their weapons actually scales more than other warrior equipment. However, spearmen also have their cons. So the weapon is slower. It's highly dependent on if you do a slash or a stab. It's later fixed third job and forward, but they really struggle with this on second job. And overall, using spear polearm is just a little bit more RNG based. Let's look at another difference that spearman has. It's stance. So in this clip, one thing that spearman has now, Iron Will actually gives them, can't remember the exact number, I think it's like 20% stance, but it helps them do more damage and it helps them dragging. So look at this. Warrior has rage, which gives them direct damage to themselves and the party. Stance, however, is an indirect way of receiving more damage because it's not more damage directly. Sure, it's not telling you you're getting 35 more weapon attack, but if you have stance, if you don't move around, get knocked back every time you get hit, you actually have more uptime while you're attacking. And more uptime means more damage. So look at here. So he gets hit, and now stanced. Stanced again. So he stands twice in a row. He doesn't have to move back, then move back forward to keep attacking. He just keeps swinging, keep swinging, keep swinging. In a scenario where you're trying to drag, so in a scenario where you're hitting things, moving, hitting, moving, so to group them all up and AoE them down, spearman has the edge over all the other warriors because with stance, it's much easier to move in a map from left to right or right to left if you're not getting knocked back every time you're getting hit. 20% isn't like a ton of stance. There will be scenarios where you will notice it. All right, yeah. And because of stance, because of hyperbody being like very good utility party-wise, I want to put spearmen right above heroes. Again, very similar classes. It's just nitpicking what you prefer. Some have a little bit more utility, some have a little bit more damage. I would put spearmen right above fighter or hero. Let's get to the last one, page. So first clip here, you'll see page with one-handed and a shield. I think page players like that roleplay of, sword and shield or blunt weapon and shield. It's I think it's more like an RPG thing, right? Like a role-playing thing. But it does good damage. 5 to 600. It was doing 600 slash blast on the golem. And it attacks pretty fast. Remember, all one-handed weapons attack pretty fast. Look at that. Also, blunt weapons now have a chance to stun. So let's see a little bit more damage here. Another thing about blunt weapons is, like spear and polearm, they have a varying damage type. So if they slash, they do a little bit more. If they stab, they do a little bit less. But the difference between slash and stab isn't as pronounced as spear and polearm. They're a little bit more stable with blunt weapon. So one curious thing I wanted to show is, if you're wearing a blunt weapon, Threaten can now stun. Look at that. He threatens. This curse die down here stunned. And maybe the golem? I didn't see quite well. But Threaten now seems very powerful. It seems to act as an attack, and because it acts as an attack, it has the chance to stun. Also, the range is pretty good. The slow is more impactful than I thought it would have been. Also, it reduces enemy damage, it reduces enemy weapon defense, and it has a very slight chance to stun. Now, is that always good? I don't know. However, one thing I do know is because it acts as an attack, it aggroes enemies now. Before, if you threatened, I don't think it did aggro enemies unless it's like a skill that does damage. Since Threaten didn't do damage, it really didn't aggro. However, now it aggroes. And that's great for warriors because, you know, they're lacking range and they do a lot of AoE. So dragging as many enemies towards on top of you that you can is really good. Here, let's look at this clip. Look at the range on that. Hit, hit. He threatens from here. He's using a two-handed sword now. Threatens all the way over here. That golem aggroes. So now I'm wondering, what if a page just stands in the middle of the platform and he just spams threaten, like a little bit left, a little bit right, and he just aggroes everything and everything goes toward him. He just slash blasts it all down. Overall, I think page is better than it was before. I'm still reluctant to see if pages are better than the other warriors. This is more of a biased take than anything. I think pages are at the bottom. And individually, because of how Threaten is looking right now, I think it's better than I thought initially in my deep dive video. But is it good enough to outplay the utility that Dark Knights bring with Hyperbody? I don't know. Is it gonna outperform Rage in party scenarios? I don't know. Individually, pages might be a little bit stronger, just a little bit, than heroes. But individually, I still think they're very, very good, very fun to play. The one guy that I showed you footage of, he's talking over and over and over how clean and how good page feels to play. You know, you're slowing enemies down. It plays really well. This is my official tier list. I think Bandit is S tier. It's on the top. It does so much damage. I know it's single target only, but it makes up for it basically by one-shotting everything in sight. All the mages are up there in A tier. It's really hard. Sorry, not all the mages. Cleric is actually B. But it's very hard not to rank mages very high up because of their addition with teleport. I've said it all over the video, but if you're cutting through, you know. Crossbowman, very powerful. Very powerful. I am curious to see if we will see a lot more archers, not just crossbowmen, but hunters in the game. Assassins, still very strong. A lot of damage output, but I'm concerned on the jumping attack thing I talked about. I hope their vertical range for their attacks get buffed. But all in all, they do a ton of damage. It sucks that they don't have a lot of AoE, but they make up for it by very high mobility and ranged attacks, right? Do you really need to drag enemies when you can just two-shot them from very far away and they just turn around and keep hitting every other platform? No, that's what assassins really shine on. Clerics, teleport. What can I say? They are the weakest class, obviously, damage-wise, but their utility and teleport makes up for it, and all the warriors are a little bit lacking. I do know that warriors get a lot of their shine and a lot of their identity and a lot of their power, third job and onwards. I really do hope to see what third job has in store for us. And that's it. That's my unofficial official tier list. I hope you guys like it. One thing I wanted to say right before ending, right? I do think every class is good. Honestly, I do think every class is viable right now. Every class is good. They all have their own niche class identity kind of thing, but at the same time, balance when it comes to output. Because people seem to think that class identity and balance are the same thing. It's not. Maybe I'll make a video on that later on. However, I do like that every class brings something with them, and yeah, hope to see a lot of diversity when the game comes out. I'll be playing Hero, by the way, because I love Hero. Hopefully they get a buff, or hopefully their third job gets better. But we'll see. Anyways, thanks for watching. Leave a comment, leave a subscribe, leave a like. I'll probably make another video if they change a lot in the next beta or anywhere before next release. I'll also probably make a tier list once third job gets announced. But until then, thank you for watching. Peace.